The taste of copper filled her mouth. Staff Sergeant Sarah Kate Morrison lay on her side on the broken asphalt of Route Amber, the Kunar Valley, stretching away on both sides like an ancient scar cut into the mountains. Smoke rose from the lead vehicle 30 meters ahead, the chemical stink of burning hydraulic fluid mixed with dust and cordite. Her left shoulder was wet, not sweat, blood. A fragment of something metal had opened her up just below the collarbone when the RPG hit. She could feel it in there, a foreign presence that sent hot wires of pain down her arm every time she moved. She moved anyway. The SR-25 lay beside her, her father's rifle. The one she had sworn never to touch again. The one she had carried for 18 months in a locked box, cleaning it monthly in the dark because she could not bring herself to let it rust, but could not bring herself to use it either. That calculation had changed. Her right hand found the radio handset. Her left hand pressed against the wound, applying pressure the way she had been trained, the way she had trained others. The radio crackled. Static. Then a voice young and tight with fear. Corporal Garrett Stone, her patient, her responsibility, the man she had just saved. She keyed the mic. Her voice came out steady, clinical. The voice of someone who had done this before in worse circumstances, though no one on this convoy knew that about her. Stone, listen to me. Your tourniquet is high and tight on your right thigh. Femoral artery is controlled. You have 90 seconds before shock would have taken you. You are past that now. You are good. A pause. Then his voice shaking but functional. Roger, Doc, I am good. She allowed herself one slow breath. One moment of something that was not quite relief but was close enough. Then she keyed the mic again. Chief, PKM, position your 2 o'clock 300 meters. Suppress now. The response was immediate. The deep hammer of the M240 opened up from the trail vehicle. Chief Nathaniel Keller did not ask questions. He simply executed. That was the difference between men who had been in the fight for 20 years and men who were still learning what the fight cost. Sarah shifted her weight. The movement sent a fresh spike of pain through her shoulder. She cataloged it. Shrapnel wound, arterial miss, manageable if she stayed conscious. She looked at the rifle beside her, her father's rifle, the one he had carried through Fallujah and Ramadi, in places that did not have names on maps. The one he had taught her to shoot when she was 10 years old on a ranch in Montana, where winter came early and the sky stretched forever. The one she had promised her mother she would never touch again. She had broken that promise. And because she had broken it, 4 men were still breathing. Sarah Morrison closed her eyes for just a moment. Somewhere in the mountains above them, men with rifles were deciding whether to press the attack or pull back. Sarah Morrison closed her eyes for just a moment. In that moment, she heard her father's voice. You did the hard part, baby girl. Now finish it. She opened her eyes. The hard part was not over. The hard part was just beginning. 36 hours earlier, Fob Ridgeline, a 0547 hours. The sun had not yet cleared the eastern ridge when Sarah Morrison crouched beside the 2nd MRAP in the motor pool at FOB Ridgeline. The air tasted of diesel and fine dust, the kind of dust that got into everything. Weapons, lungs, the creases of your hands where no amount of washing ever got it completely clean. Her aid bag sat open on the ground beside her. She moved through it with practiced efficiency. Morphine auto-injectors, combat gauze, chest seals, tourniquets, each item in its designated pocket, each pocket in the same position it had been in the night before, in the night before that. Order was survival. Chaos was what happened when order broke down. She did not allow chaos. Around her, soldiers loaded vehicles and called out to each other in the gray pre-dawn. Their voices carried across the motor pool with the easy confidence of men who had done this dozens of times before. Routine mission. Routine convoy. Resupply run to Firebase Kestrel. Nothing about Afghanistan was ever truly routine, but repetition built a kind of armor, a comfortable lie that maybe this time would be like the last time, that the road would stay quiet, that the radio would only carry the usual chatter about grid coordinates and weather updates and who had the best coffee at the TOC. Sarah knew better than to believe comfortable lies. She zipped the aid bag closed, rotated the latch, stood in one smooth motion with the bag already over her shoulder. 42 pounds. She had carried heavier. The voice reached her from somewhere to her left. Sergeant Cole Briggs, machine gunner, Detroit, 6 years in, good at his job, better at running his mouth. You see Morrison over there, 120 pounds soaking wet. How's she supposed to drag a full-grown man out of a kill zone? The 2 soldiers with him laughed, not cruel, Just the casual skepticism of men who had seen medics fail before. Another voice. Tyler Morrison, no relation. Sergeant, Virginia. She is Navy. They probably do not teach drag carries the same way we do. More laughter. Sarah did not look up. She adjusted the shoulder strap of her aid bag and moved toward her assigned vehicle. Some things were not worth the energy of her response. She had learned that lesson early. Her full name was Staff Sergeant Sarah Kate Morrison, 31 years old. Born in Hardin, Montana, a town so small that most people passed through it without knowing they had been there. East of the Bighorn Mountains, where winter came early and stayed late, and the wind could cut through 3 layers like they were paper. Her grandfather had been a rancher. Her father had been Delta Force. She was a Navy corpsman attached to a Marine reconnaissance unit. The men of 2nd Platoon Charlie Company knew her as Doc Morrison. Reliable, professional, quiet. Always where she needed to be when things went wrong. They respected her the way soldiers respect the medic. Completely. Practically. Without curiosity about what went on inside her head. She was the one who kept you alive. Beyond that, her biography was her own business. What that biography contained would have changed the way they looked at her, but she had worked hard to make sure they never looked that closely. The mission brief, 0600 hours. SFC, Robert Kane stood at the front of the briefing room with a map of the Kunar Valley displayed on the screen behind him. 48 years old, Chicago, platoon sergeant for 11 years. A man who spoke in economy of words because he had learned that extra words did not save lives. Route Amber, Firebase Kestrel, resupply, 3 vehicles, wheels up 0700. He clicked the remote. The map zoomed in on a section of road that curved between steep ridgelines. This is the squeeze, 2 kilometers, cliff face left, 200-foot drop right. No room for error, no room for turnaround. You go through or you do not go through. He paused. Let that sink in. ROE is standard. Positive ID required. Escalation of force protocol applies. Questions? Nobody had questions. They had all done this before. Kane nodded once. Vehicle assignments. Vehicle 1, Lieutenant Brennan. Private Palmer driving. Vehicle 2, Morrison Medic Stonehays Harlow. Vehicle 3, Emmy Briggs Williams Nash. Sarah filed the information away. Vehicle 2, middle position, protected on both sides, the safest position in a convoy. She did not miss the implication. Kane dismissed them with a gesture. The room emptied. Men moving toward the motor pool with the particular energy of a mission morning. Not quite rushed, not quite casual. The speed of professionals who knew that haste caused mistakes. Sarah moved with them, silent, observing. Lieutenant Alex Brennan fell into step beside her, 42 years old, former Ranger, 2 deployments in Iraq before this rotation. Quiet in the way that some officers were quiet. Not because they had nothing to say, but because they had learned that listening was often more valuable than speaking. He did not look at her when he spoke. Morrison, you good? Yes, sir. Aid bag stocked? Yes, sir. Vehicle manifest current. Sarah caught the slight emphasis on the last question, the careful neutrality of his tone. Yes, sir. Everything is accounted for. He nodded, kept walking. There was something in the way he did not quite meet her eyes, something in the precision of that last question. Sarah had noticed it before. In the past 2 weeks, Lieutenant Brennan had been watching her. Not obviously, not in a way that anyone else would have caught, but she had spent her entire life being watched. She knew the weight of a gaze, even when it came from peripheral vision. He knew something. The question was what, and why he had not said anything. 2 weeks earlier, vehicle inspection. Lieutenant Alex Brennan had been conducting routine vehicle inspections, company policy. Every 2 weeks, squad leaders checked manifests against actual inventory. Made sure nothing was missing, made sure nothing was there that should not be there. He had opened the secondary storage compartment in Vehicle 2, standard contents, extra water, MRGS, spare batteries. A lockbox marked medical supplies, supplemental. He had almost moved on, but something about the box caught his attention. The lock was military grade, the kind of lock you used for sensitive equipment, for weapons, for things that needed to stay secure. Medical supplies did not usually rate that level of security. He checked the manifest. The box was listed. Medical supplies supplemental, added to inventory 8 months ago when Morrison transferred to the unit. Signed off by the previous platoon sergeant. Brennan stood there for a long moment, looking at the box, knowing he should just mark it off and move on, knowing he was about to do something else. He tried the combination lock. Random numbers. Nothing. He tried Morrison's service number. Nothing. He tried her birthday. Nothing. He was about to give up when something made him pause. He had read her file, read it carefully when she transferred in. There had been a note. Next of kin, Margaret Morrison, mother. Father deceased. The date of death was listed. October 28, 2011. He tried the combination. 1028. The lock opened. Inside the box was a rifle case, long, narrow canvas, the kind that held something specific. He unzipped it slowly. The Knight's armament, SR-25, lay in foam-lined compartments, disassembled, cleaned, oiled. Every component in perfect condition. This was not a rifle that had been packed away and forgotten. This was a rifle that had been maintained, regularly, with the kind of care that spoke of muscle memory and respect. Beside the rifle was a photograph. A man in his 40s, Delta Force operator based on the gear and the bearing, standing in front of a range somewhere that looked like the American Southwest. Beside him, a girl, maybe 10 years old, brown hair and a ponytail, holding a rifle almost as big as she was, looking at the camera with serious hazel eyes. The man's name tape read Morrison. The girl's expression was pure concentration. Even at 10, she looked like someone who understood that what she was learning mattered. Brennan looked at the photo for a long time. Then he looked at the rifle, the scope, the ammunition, federal gold medal match, competition grade. Then he closed the case, zipped it, put it back in the lockbox, closed the lock. He did not change the manifest. He did not ask Morrison about it. He simply filed it away in the part of his mind where he kept information that might matter someday. Today was not that day, but someday was coming. He could feel it. Motor pool. 0630 hours. Sarah Morrison climbed into Vehicle 2 and took her position. Corporal Garrett Stone sat across from her. 24 years old, Tennessee, 3 months in country, good soldier, took orders well, had a habit of asking questions that showed he was thinking about the mission and not just executing by rote. She liked that about him, and Specialist Mason Hayes manned the M240, 24 years old, built like someone who had played football in high school and kept the conditioning. His left tibia had a hairline fracture that he was managing with ibuprofen and denial. She had not reported it. He had asked her not to. And she had made the judgment call that a limping gunner was more asset than liability. That calculation said something about the state of 2nd Platoon in October. Sergeant Blake Harlow rounded out the crew. 26, former college wrestler, Big Ten, a CL repair 7 weeks ago, back on duty 4 days ahead of the surgeon's recommendation. He walked with a slight forward lean that most people would not catch. Sarah caught it. She caught everything. The convoy began to roll. Sarah checked her aid bag one more time. Not because she needed to, because ritual created calm, and calm created performance, the first test. Heat exhaustion. 40 minutes into the drive, Sarah noticed Hayes shift position behind the M240. The movement was subtle, a slight sway, a hand that went to steady himself on the gun mount. She watched him for another 30 seconds. His skin had gone pale, waxy. There was sweat on his forehead despite the fact that the temperature inside the MRAP was controlled. Hayes, he turned. Yeah, Doc. When did you last hydrate? This morning, I think. You think? He hesitated. Last night, dinner. Sarah pulled a water bottle from her pack, moved to him. Drink this, now, all of it. I am good, Doc. She put her hand on his forehead. Clammy, cool. His pupils were dilated. Specialist Hayes, you are not good. You are approximately 15 minutes from heat exhaustion becoming heat stroke. Drink, now. The authority in her voice cut through whatever protest he was forming. He drank. She watched him, counted, made him finish the entire bottle. How long has it been since you slept more than 4 hours? Hayes looked away. Couple days. How many days? 4, maybe 5. Sarah pulled out her medical log, made a note. Stone switched positions with Hayes. Hayes, you are off the 240 until I clear you. Stone moved without question. Hayes started to protest. Doc, you can pass out and crack your skull on the turret mount, or you can follow my medical orders. Choose. Hayes sat down, hard. The fight went out of him all at once. Sarah crouched beside him, pulled out her penlight, checked his pupils again, checked his pulse. 68. Thready. This is Class 2 heat exhaustion. You are going to drink water every 15 minutes until we reach Kestrel. You are going to stay out of direct sun, and when we get back to Ridgeline, you are going to medical for a full workup. She softened her voice slightly. Not much, but enough. Hayes, you are a good soldier, But dead soldiers do not complete missions. Take care of yourself so you can take care of the team. Understood. Yes, Doc. Good. She moved back to her position. Stone was watching her. Something in his expression had changed. You caught that before any of us even noticed he was off. That is my job. Yeah, but most medics wait until someone drops. You caught it early. Sarah did not respond, but she filed the observation away. Stone was paying attention. That could be useful, or it could be problematic. Time would tell. In the trail vehicle, Sergeant Cole Briggs had seen the whole thing over the internal camera feed. Did Morrison just bench Hayes, he asked Kane. Looks like it. Heat exhaustion. Apparently. Briggs was quiet for a moment. Huh. Maybe she actually knows her stuff. Kane smiled slightly. Maybe. The second test, a CL failure. 1 hour into the convoy, they stopped for a scheduled break. Soldiers dismounted, stretched, checked equipment. Sarah watched Harlow climb out of the vehicle. The wrestler moved carefully. Too carefully. Each step measured. His right leg was taking most of his weight. She gave him 60 seconds. Let him think he was managing it. Then she approached. Sergeant Harlow, I need to check your knee. He turned, forced a smile. It is good, Doc. Surgeon cleared me. 4 days ahead of schedule. I read your file. Yeah, well, I heal fast. Sit down, Sergeant. It was not a request. Harlow hesitated, then sat on the MRAP's bumper. Sarah knelt, put her hands on his right knee. This is going to hurt. Do not move. She performed an anterior drawer test. Pulled his tibia forward with controlled pressure. The knee shifted. 8 millimeters. Maybe more. Harlow's face went white. He did not make a sound. Sarah released the pressure. Sat back. Your ACL is torn, not strained. Torn. The repair failed or was incomplete. The surgeon said, the surgeon cleared you based on a 6-week post-op timeline that assumes perfect healing. You do not have perfect healing. You have a grade 3 laxity. She pulled out her medical log again. Made notes. You are non-weight bearing on tactical movement effective immediately. If we take contact, you hold a static position. You do not run. You do not pivot. You do not do anything that could turn this into a complete rupture. Harlow's jaw tightened. Doc, I can fight. Yes, you can, from a fixed position, which is exactly what I just told you. She met his eyes. Her voice dropped. Not unkind, but absolute. Sergeant Harlow, I understand that you want to pull your weight. I understand that sitting out feels like failure. But here is what I need you to understand. If that knee fails completely in contact, you become a casualty I have to treat under fire, which means I am not treating someone else, which means someone else might die. She paused. Let that land. So you are going to follow my orders, not because I am pulling rank, but because you are smart enough to know I am right. Harlow stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Roger, Doc. Good, now, get back into the vehicle. I am adjusting your position to compensate. She stood, moved back toward the MRAP. From behind her, Harlow watched her go. Hey, Doc, she turned. The last medic cleared me without even touching the knee. Said if the surgeon cleared it, that was good enough. Sarah said nothing. You are different. I am thorough, Sergeant. There is a difference. In the lead vehicle, Lieutenant Brennan had been listening on the comm. He keyed his radio. Private channel. Direct to Sarah. Morrison, good call on Harlow. Just doing my job, sir. Yeah, you are. He paused. Keep doing it. The transmission ended. Sarah filed it away. Another piece of the puzzle that was Lieutenant Brennan's awareness. He was watching. He knew something, and he was choosing not to act on it. The question was why, Mama? The third test. Teaching Cross, as the convoy prepared to roll again, PFC Levi Cross approached Sarah. 19 years old. 3 months in country. Tennessee. Serious in the way that some young soldiers were serious. Not grim, just focused on learning everything he could before the learning became life or death. Doc Morrison. She looked up from her aid bag. Yes, Cross. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. The tourniquet, the cat, I know the basics, high and tight, twist until pulse stops, but he trailed off, looking for words. Sarah understood. But you want to know how to do it under fire. When your hands are shaking, when the patient is screaming, when you have 30 seconds before they bleed out. Cross nodded. Yes, Doc, exactly that. Sarah pulled a training tourniquet from her aid bag, the kind with no windlass, safe for demonstration. Give me your arm. Cross extended his left arm. Sarah wrapped the tourniquet around his upper arm, high, just below the shoulder. The key is not speed. Everyone thinks it is speed. It is not. It is precision under pressure. She pulled the tourniquet tight, not enough to cut circulation, just enough that Cross could feel it. You want it as high as possible, closer to the torso, while less distance for blood to travel from the heart. Correct. Also more soft tissue compression. Better mechanical advantage. She threaded the windlass. Let Cross feel the resistance. Now, the twist. This is where people fail. They twist until it feels tight. That is not enough. You twist until you see the bleeding stop. Visually confirm, even if the patient is screaming that it is too tight. What if they pass out from the pain? Then they pass out, better unconscious than dead. You can wake someone up. You cannot resurrect them. Cross nodded, taking mental notes. Sarah continued, after you secure the windlass, you mark the time on their forehead. Sharpie, grease pencil, blood if you have to. The time matters because tourniquets can only stay on for about 90 minutes before tissue damage becomes permanent. 90 minutes, give or take, depends on the patient, their overall health, ambient temperature. But 90 is the number you carry in your head. She released the tourniquet, let Cross's arm return to normal. Now you do it. On me. Cross hesitated. Doc, I do not want to hurt you. You will not. You are going to do it exactly the way I just showed you. High and tight, precision over speed. Go. Cross wrapped the tourniquet around Sarah's arm. His hands were shaking slightly. Breathe, Cross. Fear does not help. Focus does. He breathed, steadied, pulled the tourniquet tight. Higher. He adjusted, got it just below her shoulder. Good. Now thread the windlass. He did. Began to twist. Keep going. It is tight, Doc. I can still feel my pulse. Keep going. He twisted another full rotation. Sarah checked. Her radial pulse was gone. No blood flow past the tourniquet. Stop. That is it. That is the pressure you need. Remember how that feels. Cross released the windlass, unwrapped the tourniquet. His hands were steadier now. Doc, can I ask something else? Go ahead. You teach like an instructor, not like a medic who learned this in school. You teach like someone who has done this for real. A lot. Sarah looked at him. 19 years old, smart, observant. I have done it for real. That is why I can teach it. How many times? She considered the question. Considered how much to say. Enough times that I do not have to think about it anymore. My hands remember. That is what you are trying to build. Muscle memory that works when your brain is too overwhelmed to think. Cross nodded slowly. Thank you, Doc. You are welcome. Now get in the vehicle. We are rolling in 2. After Cross left, Chief Nathaniel Keller approached, 48 years old, former SEAL. 20 years in special operations before transferring to a training cadre position that somehow put him on a convoy in Afghanistan. He had been watching the entire exchange. Morrison. Chief, that was good instruction. Thank you. Too good. Sarah said nothing. Keller studied her. Not suspicion in his eyes. Recognition. I have trained a lot of people in my career. Combat medics, corpsmen, SAR specialists. They teach the procedure. You teach the mindset. I do not know what you mean, Chief. Yes, you do. He did not press, did not ask, just nodded once. Whoever you were before you became Doc Morrison, they trained you right. He walked away before she could respond. Sarah stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of being seen. Chief Keller knew, maybe not the details, but he knew she was something other than what she appeared to be. She filed it away. Added it to the growing list of things that were no longer completely under her control. The convoy rolled out again. En route to the squeeze, 0940 hours. The mountains rose on both sides, ancient, indifferent. The road curved through terrain that had seen empires rise and fall. Alexander's army, the British, the Soviets, now Americans. The mountains did not care. Sarah watched the terrain with eyes that had been trained to see more than most people saw. High ground, dead zones, lines of approach and withdrawal. Firing positions. Her father had taught her to read ground when she was 14 years old, before he deployed to Iraq, before the IED on Route Bravo that killed him and 3 other operators and created a hole in her life that had never quite filled in. He had taught her to think like someone who might need to shoot from distance. She had asked him why. Baby girl, he had said, you never know when you might need to save someone from far away. Healing is not always done with your hands. Sometimes it is done with precision. She had not understood then. She understood now. Stone was watching her. Doc, you see something? Sighing. Sarah realized she had been staring at the eastern ridgeline for too long. No, just watching. You watch different than other people. Do I? Yeah, like you are counting something, measuring. Sarah turned to face him. What do you think I am measuring? I do not know, but it is not random. You are looking for something specific. He was too smart, too observant. She needed to be more careful. Old habit, my father was a hunter. Taught me to read terrain. It stuck. It was not a lie, just incomplete. Stone nodded, seemed to accept it, but Sarah caught the slight narrowing of his eyes, the way he filed the information away. He was watching her the way Chief Keller was watching her, the way Lieutenant Brennan had been watching her for 2 weeks. The armor she had built was starting to crack. The radio crackled. Lieutenant Brennan's voice from the lead vehicle. All elements, approaching the squeeze. Maintain interval. Watch for rockfall. Watch the high ground. Sarah looked out the ballistic glass window. The squeeze. 2 kilometers of road pressed between a cliff face and a drop that would kill you if the fall did not, and the fire from above finished what gravity started. The kind of terrain that made ambushes easy and survival hard. She had read the after-action reports. 4 convoys hit in this section in the past 6 months, 2 with casualties, all with damage. The road narrowed, the cliff face rose on the left. Steep, rocky, 1,000 places to hide a man with a rifle. On the right, the drop fell away into nothing. Her hands rested on her aid bag. They were steady. They had always been steady. That was the thing her father had noticed when she was 10 years old. When he first put a rifle in her hands and told her to breathe and sight and squeeze. You have steady hands, baby girl. That is a gift. Do not waste it. She had not wasted it. She had become something her father would have been proud of. And then she had walked away from it. But the gift remained hidden, waiting. The anomaly, 1,047 hours, 37 minutes into the squeeze. Sarah heard something on the radio that made her go still. It was faint, background noise, a transmission on an enemy frequency that the TOC monitoring system sometimes picked up. Most people would have dismissed it. Radio chatter, distant, irrelevant. But Sarah had been trained to listen for patterns. And this was a pattern, 3 short transmissions, evenly spaced, coordinated timing. She had heard that pattern before. 2 years ago, in a briefing about enemy communication protocols. It was not random chatter, it was a countdown. She keyed her radio, direct channel to Brennan. Sir, request we increase interval, move faster through this section. Brennan's response was immediate. Reason, radio intercept, enemy comms, possible coordination. A pause. TOC has not flagged anything. I know, sir, but I am hearing it. 3 transmissions, evenly spaced. That is not casual, that is tactical. Another pause. Longer. Brennan was deciding whether to trust her instinct or dismiss it as paranoia. Copy, increasing speed. All elements close, interval increased to 40 clicks. The convoy accelerated. Stone was staring at her. Doc, how did you hear that I did not hear anything? Good ears. That is not good ears. That is... He trailed off. What did you do before you were a medic? Sarah met his eyes. I was a medic. That is what I do. That is not what I asked. The radio crackled, cut off whatever response Sarah might have given. Lieutenant Brennan's voice, tight, controlled. Rock slide ahead, 100 meters, road blocked. Sarah looked through the windshield. The boulders were too uniform, too evenly distributed across the road. Geologists did not build patterns like that. Sappers did. She keyed her radio. Used Lieutenant Brennan's first name for the first time in 8 months because protocol did not matter when you had seconds before the world came apart. Alex, that is not natural. Get back in the RP hit the lead vehicle's front axle and everything changed. 1,053 hours. The ambush. The explosion came up through the floor of Sarah's MRAP like a fist. The concussion wave hit her chest, stole her breath, filled the air with the scream of tearing metal and the chemical stink of burning hydraulic fluid. Her hands moved before her mind caught up. Seatbelt release, door handle, boots on the ground. She was out and moving while the vehicle was still rocking. Low and fast, aid bag already off her shoulder and in her hands. 42 pounds of equipment that would determine who lived and who did not in the next 10 minutes. Lieutenant Brennan was down. He had been outside the vehicle when the RPG hit, assessing the rock slide. Too exposed, too trusting that the enemy would wait another 30 seconds before pulling the trigger. They had not waited. A fragment of the vehicle's front panel had caught him across the left side of his chest. He was on one knee beside the lead vehicle, one hand braced on the bumper, the other pressed to his ribs. Blood came through his fingers, dark, pulsing with his heartbeat. Not arterial, not yet, but bad. Sarah hit the ground beside him. "Lay down, sir." She was already cutting his plate carrier away. Trauma shears through the straps, hands moving with clinical precision. No wasted motion, no hesitation. "How many?" Brennan's voice was tight, controlled. The voice of a man managing pain through discipline. "Do not talk. Breathe shallow." She exposed the wound. A ragged puncture the size of a playing card. Fragment entry just below the collarbone. No exit wound visible through the blood, which meant the metal was still in there. Which meant movement could turn this from survivable to catastrophic in seconds. Chest seal. She had it out of her aid bag and positioned in under 90 seconds. Her hands moved through the sequence automatically. Peel backing, center on wound, press and seal, check edges. The training was old, automatic. Her hands knew what to do even when her mind was somewhere else. Cataloging threats, counting muzzle flashes on the ridgeline, calculating angles and distances and how long they could hold before the enemy closed the gap. Across the road, Private Palmer was slumped against the steering wheel of the lead vehicle. His head had hit something during the blast. Blood ran from his nose. His eyes were unfocused. Concussion, maybe worse. Sarah would get to him after Brennan was stable. Triage was mathematics. Cold, brutal, effective. Save the ones you can save in the order that gives you the most survivors. The sound of the M240 split the air. Hayes had gotten the weapon up, despite Sarah's earlier order to stand down. Adrenaline overriding exhaustion. 3-round bursts. Disciplined, professional, suppressing the PKM positions on the eastern ridgeline. The training held even when everything else was chaos. The PKM answered. Orange and white tracers walked across the road surface, sparks snapping off the asphalt. The sound was physical, a pressure against her chest and ears. Sarah finished Brennan's chest seal, checked the adherence, checked his pupils. Reactive? Equal. Good. "Sir, you are stable. Stay down. Do not move. If you feel increased difficulty breathing, radio me immediately." She did not wait for acknowledgement. She was already moving to Palmer. The driver's pupils were unequal. Left larger than right, classic sign of concussion with potential intracranial pressure. She stabilized his neck with her hands, spoke clearly, loudly enough to cut through his confusion. "Palmer, can you hear me?" He blinked, focused on her with effort. "Where is Copper?" "Who is Copper?" "My dog. Golden Retriever." "Where is he?" Palmer did not have a dog. Sarah had read his file. That was the concussion talking. She checked for skull fracture, palpated carefully. No depression, no instability, probable concussion without skull involvement. She moved him to recovery position. Left side, head supported, airway clear. He would live, if they all lived. The radio crackled, SFC Kane's voice from the trail vehicle. Steady, controlled. The voice of a man who had been in worse situations and lived through them. Lead element, trail element is pinned against cliff face. 2 wounded, Williams and Nash. Switching to alternate comms. We are combat effective, but immobile. Then his radio went dead. Sarah processed the information in the half-second it took to reach her vehicle. 4 men wounded confirmed, possibly 2 more in the trail vehicle. Enemy on the high ground with established positions. Convoy immobilized. No quick extraction. They were going to have to hold. The question was for how long. PFC Levi Cross crouched behind her vehicle with his M4 up, firing at the high ground positions. His face was pale. His hands were steady. 19 years old. 3 months in country. First real contact. He was doing everything right. Sarah dropped beside him. "Cross, radio, get the TOC." He looked at her, eyes wide but focused. The training overriding the fear. "What do I say? 4WIA, non-ambulatory, convoy disabled at grid." She rattled off 8 digits from memory. No hesitation, no reference to map or GPS. Cross stared at her. "How did you say it back?" He did. Perfect recall. "Good. Call it in." And Cross, "Yes, Doc." "If they ask how long we can hold it, tell them we are holding. Do not give them a time limit. That is an order." He nodded, keyed the radio. Began transmitting. Sarah moved back to Brennan. The lieutenant's color was poor, gray at the edges, but he was conscious. His eyes tracked her. He reached out, caught her wrist. His grip was weak but deliberate. "Morrison." His voice dropped. meant only for her. Secondary storage, Vehicle 2, code is 1028. Sarah went completely still. The date her father died, the code she had set on the lockbox when she transferred to this unit 8 months ago, which meant Brennan knew, had known. For how long? Sir, I do not. Brennan's grip tightened. His eyes held hers. Gray, steady despite the pain. I have had your vehicle for 8 months, Morrison. I found the box during a routine inspection 6 weeks after you transferred in. 6 weeks. He had known for 7 months. I never asked what was in it, Brennan continued. I never asked because it was not my business. You were doing your job, doing it well. What you carried from your past was your concern. A burst of PKM fire stitched across the road, close enough that rock fragments peppered the vehicle's armor. Brennan did not flinch. But right now it is my business, because I have 4 men wounded in an enemy element that knows exactly where we are and is in no hurry to leave. And I need every asset I have. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. I made a promise. I know, I read your file. Your father was Colonel James Morrison, Delta Force, KIA, October 28, 2011. The date on the lock. Brennan's voice was not unkind, but it was absolute. I am guessing your mother made you promise never to touch a rifle again after your father died. I am guessing that box contains something that would break that promise. Sarah said nothing. Break it, Brennan said, or watch them die. Your choice. He released her wrist. Sarah stood. She looked at the ridgeline, at the muzzle flashes, at the men moving down the eastern slope in tactical bounds. Professional, patient, the confidence of a force that had done the math and liked the answer. She looked at her aid bag, at the chest seals and morphine and combat gauze that would keep men alive, if they lived long enough to need them. She looked at Vehicle 2, at the lockbox in the secondary storage, at the thing she had been running from for 10 years. Corporal Garrett Stone was behind the vehicle's wheel well, using it as cover. His M4 was up, his shooting was controlled. Short bursts, aimed fire. But his eyes were on her, watching. Sergeant Blake Harlow was on the opposite side. Same position, same discipline, holding his static position exactly as Sarah had ordered. Not pivoting, not putting weight on the damaged knee. Both men doing their jobs. Both men about to watch her do something they did not understand. Sarah walked to the vehicle. She moved across open ground. Not crouched and scrambling the way most people moved under fire, but angled, deliberate, using the gap between vehicles as a natural dead zone. Reading the geometry of the incoming fire and navigating around it. This was not something they taught in medical school. This was something else entirely. Chief Keller was in the trail vehicle, too far to see details through the smoke and dust. But she felt his attention, felt the weight of professional recognition. He was watching. He knew. Maybe not the specifics, but he knew she was operating on training that had nothing to do with combat medicine. The lockbox was exactly where it had been for 8 months. The combination lock gleamed dull in the harsh Afghan sun. Sarah's fingers moved to the dial. 1028. October 28, 2011. The day her father died. The day she made a promise to her mother. The day she decided to become someone different. The lock opened. Inside was the canvas case. Long, narrow. The proportions of something built for a single purpose. She pulled it out. The weight was familiar. 31 pounds of precision machined steel and carbon fiber. A tool designed by engineers and perfected by men who understood that sometimes survival came down to a single well-placed shot. She unzipped the case. The Knight's Armament SR-25 lay in foam-lined compartments, disassembled, each piece in its designated space. Upper receiver, lower receiver, bolt carrier group, Schmidt and Bender 5 to 25 times scope, bipod, suppressor mount. She had cleaned this rifle 14 days ago, at midnight, alone in the vehicle bay. Not because she intended to use it, but because she could not bring herself to let it degrade. Her hands reached for the upper receiver. The muscle memory was immediate, absolute. Her fingers knew exactly where to go, exactly how much pressure to apply, exactly what sequence to follow. This was not something you forgot. This was something that lived in your body deeper than conscious thought. 47 seconds. That was how long it took to assemble the rifle. She had done it faster. In competitions when she was 16, when her father timed her with a stopwatch and made her do it again if she broke 45 seconds. But 47 was fast enough. The scope went on last. She checked the mounting, checked the zero. The rifle had not been fired in 18 months, but the zero held. Good optics did not drift. The ammunition was in a moisture-sealed pouch. Federal gold medal match, 168 grain Sierra Match King, 12 rounds in two 6-round stripper clips. She loaded one clip, 6 rounds. If 6 was not enough, 12 would not matter. Behind her, someone made a sound. She turned. PFC Levi Cross was staring, his mouth open, his M4 momentarily forgotten in his hands. Doc, where did what? Sarah's voice came out flat. Command voice. The voice she had learned from her father when he taught her that shooting was only half of combat. The other half was control. Cross, I need you on the radio. Keep that channel to the TOC open. Report anything they send. Can you do that? Yes, but where did that come from? Hayes, from the M240 position, his voice tight with shock. PKM position, Sarah said. North-northeast. How many? The question snapped Hayes back to professional mode, training overriding confusion. One gun, 2 feeders, maybe 240 meters up the ridge. I see them. She had seen them 11 minutes ago, when they first opened fire. She had cataloged their position the way she cataloged everything: elevation, angle, distance, dead zones, high ground, established firing position, good angles on the road. A problem, but a solvable problem if you had the right tools. Stone's voice. Careful, not alarmed, but very, very careful. Doc Morrison, what are we looking at here? Sarah met his eyes. She owed him that much. Not an explanation, not a biography, but the truth stated plainly the way hard things should be stated. I was a designated marksman before I transferred to medical corps. I am going to use that training now. I need you to trust me and follow my instructions. Silence. Then Stone again, slowly processing. When you say designated marksman, I mean I can make shots that will keep you alive. Stone stared at her for another moment, then nodded once. Rules of engagement. It was exactly the right question. The question a professional asked when they understood that rules still applied even when the situation was trying to convince you otherwise. Sarah felt something shift in her assessment of Stone. He was not just smart, he was professional. He understood. I will avoid lethal shots where the tactical situation allows it. When it does not, when it is them or one of you, I will do what I have to do. That is my ROE. She paused. Issues. Nobody had issues. Sarah moved to the forward edge of the vehicle. She went prone. The SR-25 settled against her shoulder like it had never left. The bipod deployed. The stock found the pocket of her shoulder. The scope came up to her eye. The world narrowed. This was the thing people did not understand about precision shooting. It was not about the rifle. It was not about the scope or the ammunition or any of the technical variables. It was about the ability to make the world go quiet, to take chaos and reduce it to geometry. Wind, distance, angle, bullet drop, target movement, barometric pressure, temperature, variables that could be measured, calculated, controlled. Her father had taught her this when she was 14. The noise does not matter, baby girl. The fear does not matter. The only thing that matters is the problem. And you are better at solving problems than anyone I have ever trained. She found the PCAM position in her scope, 240 meters. Hayes had called it accurately, not a difficult shot under normal circumstances. But circumstances were not normal. Her shoulder hurt. The shrapnel wound was bleeding through her uniform. She could feel the wet heat of it running down her arm. She cataloged the pain, acknowledged it, set it aside. Pain was data, process it, move on. She settled her breathing. 4 count in, 7 count hold, 8 count out. The rhythm her father had taught her, the rhythm that slowed her heart rate, calmed her nervous system, made her hands remember what they were built to do. The crosshairs settled on the PKM's barrel assembly, right at the mounting bracket where the weapon attached to its tripod. Disable, not kill. She had made that decision consciously, deliberately. This was not 10 years ago. She was not the same person she had been. She could choose, and she chose to give them a chance. The trigger broke clean. The recoil was immediate, familiar. The SR-25 kicked back against her shoulder, sent a spike of pain through the shrapnel wound that made her vision white at the edges for half a second. She rode through it, reacquired the target through the scope. The PKM's barrel assembly had shattered. The weapon was silent, inoperable. One of the feeders threw himself behind a boulder. The other raised his hands. Surrender. She did not fire at either of them. The weapon was disabled. The threat was neutralized. That was enough. Behind her, someone whispered something that might have been a prayer or might have been profanity. She did not turn to look. There were still threats on the ridgeline, still men moving, still work to do. The radio shot, 11:08 hours. The second flanking element had a spotter with a radio. She could see him through the scope, young, maybe 20, calling in coordinates to someone she could not see. Tactical communications. Real-time updates on American positions. That radio needed to go dark. The antenna was thin, maybe 8 inches tall, black against the gray rock. Distance 320 meters. Angle 37 degrees upward. Wind left to right approximately 4 knots. She adjusted for wind, for distance, for the angle. Her breathing settled into the rhythm again. The shot broke. The antenna folded over, clipped at the base. The radio went dead in the spotter's hand. He stared at it. The expression on his face was one Sarah had seen before. The expression of a man whose tactical picture just went dark, who suddenly understood that he was operating blind against an enemy who could see him perfectly. "That buys us maybe 12 minutes, Sarah said. Her voice was steady, clinical. "Before they get a runner to the high ground element. After that, they will know exactly what we have and what we do not." Stone's voice from behind the wheel well. "What do we have?" Sarah ejected the magazine, checked the round count. 4 rounds expended. 2 on the PKM, 1 on the radio. 1 she had chambered and not fired. Wait, that was wrong, she recounted. 5 rounds remaining in the magazine. 1 in the chamber. 6 total. 6 rounds, 1 rifle. 4 good positions if we adjust. She looked at each of them in turn. And each other. That is what we have. Hayes grinned through whatever pain his fractured tibia was causing him. "Sounds about right, Doc." Cross exhaled hard, the breath of someone choosing to be steady rather than giving in to fear. "Tell me where you need me." But Sergeant Cole Briggs was not grinning. He was staring at Sarah from the trail vehicle. His face was pale, his expression somewhere between shock and something else. Understanding, maybe. The realization that everything he thought he knew had just been revealed as incomplete. His voice came over the radio, tight, controlled, but with an edge. "Morrison, where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" Sarah did not answer immediately. She was scanning the ridgeline, counting movement, assessing the next threat. Finally, she keyed her radio. "My father taught me." Silence on the radio. Then Briggs again. "Your father teach all Navy corpsmen to make 700-meter precision shots?" "No." "Then who the hell was your father?" Sarah closed her eyes for just a moment. Saw him, Montana, the ranch, winter light coming through the window of the barn where they practiced. His hands on hers, showing her how to hold the rifle, how to breathe, how to let the shot surprise her. "You have a gift, baby girl. Use it to protect people. That is what gifts are for." She opened her eyes. Colonel James Morrison, Delta Force, killed in action Iraq. October 28th, 2011. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Chief Keller's voice. Quiet, respectful, heavy with recognition. "Reaper Morrison." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "You knew him?" "I served with him, Ramadi, 2006, second battle. He pulled me out of a building after an IED collapsed it on my fire team." Keller's voice was steady, but there was emotion underneath it. "He was the best man I ever knew. Saved my life with that rifle you are holding." Sarah looked down at the SR-25, her father's rifle, the one that had saved Chief Keller, the one that had saved countless others, the one she was using now. "He was the best man I ever knew too, Chief." In the trail vehicle, someone had pulled out a tablet. They had satellite internet access through the TOC relay when it was working. 30 seconds of searching. Then Briggs's voice came back over the radio. Different now, lower. The skepticism replaced by something else. Awe, maybe, or respect. "Colonel James Reaper Morrison, Delta Force. 62 confirmed kills across 4 deployments. Silver Star. 3 Bronze Stars with Valor. Killed in action 2011. Survived by wife Margaret and daughter Sarah." A pause. "You are his daughter." "Yes. And you have been hiding this why?" "Because I made a promise. Because my mother lost her husband and could not bear to lose her daughter the same way. Because I have been running from this for 10 years. Because I thought if I could just heal people instead of—" Sarah did not say any of that. She said, "Because it was not relevant. Until now." The letter, 11:15 hours. The lockbox beside Sarah was still open. Inside, beneath where the rifle had been, was an envelope. Sealed, yellowed with age. Her name written on it in her father's handwriting. She had never opened it. She knew what it was. Her father had told her about it 3 days before he deployed to Iraq. The deployment he did not come back from. Sarah, if something happens to me, there is a letter, in my personal effects. They will give it to your mother. She will give it to you when you are ready. I hope you never need to read it, but if you do, remember that I love you, and I am proud of you, no matter what. Her mother had given her the letter at the funeral. Sarah had put it in the rifle case, sealed, unread. Some things were too heavy to carry and too impossible to put down. But now seemed like the time. She reached for the envelope. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, not from adrenaline, from the weight of 10 years, of promises made and broken, of running and finally stopping. She opened it. The handwriting was her father's, strong, clear. The handwriting of a man who wrote reports and letters and notes to his daughter about homework and hunting and how to be a good person. Sarah Kate, if you are reading this in the field, I am gone. I am sorry, baby girl. I taught you both hands since you were 10. How to heal your mama gave you that heart. How to fight that is the Morrison blood. Your mother will make you promise never to touch a rifle again. I understand. She is protecting you the only way she knows how. I do not blame her. I would do the same if I could. But Sarah, sometimes the right promise to break is the one that lets you save a life. I taught you to shoot, not because I wanted you to be a soldier. I taught you because I wanted you to have choices, to be capable, to never be helpless when someone needed you. Heal when you can, fight when you must. Do not be just a healer. Do not be just a warrior. Be both. Use both hands. That is what makes us Morrison. That is what makes us whole. I love you. I am proud of you. No matter what you choose, keep them safe, baby girl. Dad. The letter blurred. Sarah wiped her eyes once. Quick, she folded the letter, put it in her pocket over her heart. Then she stood, the rifle in her hands, her father's rifle, the one he had carried, the one he had taught her to use, the one he had known somehow that she would need someday. Stone was watching her. Doc, Sarah looked at him, at all of them. I made a promise to my mother when my father died, that I would never touch a rifle again, that I would use my hands only to heal. She touched the letter over her heart. I just broke it, because my father taught me something my mother could not, that sometimes keeping people alive means more than keeping promises. She moved back to her firing position. And right now, keeping you alive is the only promise that matters. The moving target, 11:22 hours. The ridgeline was active again. Movement on the southern approach. A technical vehicle, old Toyota pickup, PKM mounted in the bed, rolling slowly down the dirt road. Distance 1,150 meters. Moving target, left to right, approximately 15 miles per hour. Crosswind, 5 to 7 knots, variable, and she was wounded. Blood still seeping from her shoulder. Pain radiating down her arm with every heartbeat. This was not a training scenario. This was real. Sarah went prone, settled the rifle, found the technical in her scope. The vehicle was moving. The gunner was scanning, looking for targets. He would find them soon. And when he did, the PKM would shred their position. She did the math. Lead calculation based on vehicle speed and distance. Wind compensation for the crosswind. Bullet drop at this distance. Her own heart rate. Her breathing. The pain. All variables. All measurable. All controllable. The numbers came automatically. The way they always had. The way her father had drilled into her until she could do it in her sleep. She settled her breathing into the rhythm. 4 inches, 7 hold, 8 out. Her heart rate dropped. 62 beats per minute, then 58. Good. The crosshairs settled on the PKM, not the gunner, the weapon. She could have taken the gunner. Center mass, easy shot even at this distance, even with the vehicle moving. But that was not who she was anymore. Or maybe it was who she had always been and was just now remembering. Healer first, fighter when necessary, both hands. But healing came first when the choice existed. The trigger broke. The round left the barrel at 2,800 feet per second. Time slowed in the way it always did when you made a shot that mattered. She watched through the scope, watched the bullets trace, watched the flight path arc downward as gravity and distance took their toll, watched it impact. The PKM's barrel assembly exploded. Metal fragments, the weapon tumbled off its mounting. The technical slewed sideways, lost momentum, stopped. The gunner scrambled out, unharmed, confused, but alive. The feeders raised their hands. Surrender. Sarah lowered the rifle, exhaled, 5 rounds remaining. SFC Kane's voice over the radio. Quiet, controlled, but with something beneath it that might have been awe. Confirm. Did Morrison just make an 1150-meter shot on a moving target while wounded? Chief Keller answered. Confirmed. Jesus Christ, Briggs's voice, softer now, the mockery completely gone. That is not luck. No. That is not even training. No. That is, Chief Keller finished the sentence. That is Morrison. Sarah checked her shoulder. The bleeding had slowed, not stopped, but manageable. She had work to do. She moved back to Brennan, checked his chest seal, still holding. Color better, pulse stronger. She moved to Palmer, checked his pupils, still unequal but improving. Concussion resolving. She worked through her casualties systematically, one by one. Medical first, always medical first. Because that was who she was. Both hands. But healing came first. Always. The scout bird. 1,134 hours. The radio crackled with a newest voice. Female. Professional. Carrying the particular authority of a pilot who had seen combat and come through it. Songbird position. This is Falcon lead. We have eyes on your grid. Authenticate. Cross gave the authentication code from the card in his pocket. Copy Songbird. I am Captain Rachel Moreno, OH-58 Kiowa Scout. On station. Who is your element, Commander? Cross looked at Sarah. She was the ranking NCO with Lieutenant Brennan wounded. But Brennan was conscious, still in command. She moved to the lieutenant, gave him the handset. Brennan keyed the mic. His voice was weak but clear. Falcon lead, this is Lieutenant Alex Brennan, Element Commander, 4WIA. Convoy disabled. We have been holding this position for, he checked his watch, 4 hours and 17 minutes. A pause on the other end. Lieutenant, confirmed you have been holding with 4 wounded for over 4 hours. Confirmed. What is your defensive capability? Brennan looked at Sarah. She took the handset. Falcon lead, this is Staff Sergeant Morrison. We have 1 precision rifle platform. 6 rounds remaining, multiple small arms. Ammunition status green. We are combat effective. Another pause. Longer. Then Captain Moreno's voice came back. Different now. Recalibration happening in real time. Morrison, are you the shooter that has been working those ridge lines, PKM positions disabled? Radio intercept, technical vehicle. Sarah looked at the SR-25 beside her, at her father's rifle, at the thing she had been running from and had finally stopped running from. Yes, ma'am. What is your platform? SR-25. And you have 6 rounds remaining. Affirmative. What is your call sign, Staff Sergeant Morrison? Sarah looked out at the Kunar Valley, at the mountains that had witnessed so much violence, at the place where her father had taught her to be both things at once, healer and warrior, both hands. She thought about what her father's call sign had been, Reaper, because he brought death with precision. She did not want that. She wanted something different. Morrison, she said, just Morrison. Captain Moreno's response came immediately. Copy that, Morrison. QRF ground element is 3-8 minutes out. I am on station. You hold. I have your back. Falcon lead, be advised. 16 hostiles moving down southern approach. 200 meters from our position. Probably pushing for contact before QRF arrives. I see them, Morrison. They do not know I see them. Let's keep it that way until the last possible moment. Roger that. The radio went silent. 38 minutes. Sarah looked at the ridgeline, at the movement, at the 16 fighters moving in tactical bounds with fire support. Professional. Patient. Coordinated. She had 6 rounds left. The math did not work, unless she changed the equation. 1,142 hours. Final preparations. Sarah keyed her radio. Chief Keller, I need you mobile. Move to trail vehicle wheel well. Better angle on southern approach. Copy. Keller moved even with the enemy close, even with the risk. He moved because she had earned his trust through competence, through demonstrated capability. Trust was currency in combat. She had earned hers. Harlow, you are on medical. Brennan needs seal pressure check every 3 minutes. Can you do that with your knee? Harlow looked at his damaged ACL, looked at Lieutenant Brennan, made the calculation. Yes, Doc, I can hold a static position and monitor. Do it. Stone, you and Cross are going to create a thermal signature for me. Chem light, north side of vehicle 2, when I say. Stone pulled a chem light from his kit, did not ask why, did not question the tactic, just readied it. Sarah went prone behind the vehicle's front quarter panel. The SR-25 settled against her wounded shoulder. Pain flared. She cataloged it, moved on. The scope came up. There were 2 snipers on the southern high ground. She had spotted them 23 minutes ago, held them in her peripheral awareness while managing everything else. Now they were the priority. Distance 820 meters to the nearest, 840 to the second, elevated positions. Good concealment, professional spacing. They were good, but she was better. And she had something they did not have. She had Chief Keller about to create a distraction. Stone, on my mark, 3, 2, 1, mark. Stone cracked the chem light, bit the cap off. The green glow was small but bright in the gray afternoon light. He threw it in a clean arc, college athlete arm. The light sailed north, landed in open ground. Both Southern snipers tracked the movement, automatic reflex. Trained eyes following motion in their peripheral vision. The first sniper's scope swung toward the light. Sarah took the shot, 820 meters. Slight upward angle, minimal wind. The round hit the sniper's scope. The optic exploded, glass and metal fragments. The rifle tumbled off the position. The shooter was unhurt, but combat ineffective. Blind without his scope, one down. The second sniper was already adjusting. Had seen the shot, had figured out the deception. Was swinging back toward Stone's position. Was 5 seconds from putting a round through Stone's skull. Sarah did not have 5 seconds. She reacquired, breathed, did not rush. Rushing got people killed. But the second sniper was fast, professional. His rifle was coming around, finding Stone. The shot was seconds away. Sarah made a decision. The crosshairs settled. Center mass. No warning shot. No attempt to disable. This was them or him. The choice was simple. The shot broke clean. The second sniper dropped. Did not move again. Sarah felt it. The weight, the finality, the knowledge that she had just taken a life. She filed it in the same place she filed everything that mattered. Clean, without flinching, without looking away. This was the cost. This was what both hands meant. Sometimes healing meant protecting, and protecting meant doing what was necessary. Down, she called. Stone pressed flat. The man did not get up. Sarah loaded her last 4 rounds from the second clip, 12 rounds total at the start. 8 expended, 4 remaining. The main element was 15 meters out now. 12 fighters, moving fast, no longer cautious. They thought they had numbers, thought they had momentum. They were about to learn otherwise. Sarah's next shot took the lead fighter's weapon, a clean hit at the receiver. The rifle shattered, dropped from his hands. The man scrambled for cover, unharmed but disarmed. 3 rounds left. The element was 10 meters out. Sarah held her fire, held it while they closed, while her finger rested on the trigger, while her breathing stayed controlled and her heart rate stayed low. Everything was ready. She could take 3 more. Maybe stop the advance. Maybe buy another minute. But 3 rounds would not stop 12 fighters. The math still did not work. Unless 11:51 hours, the Apache, the world turned white. The AH-64 Apache that Captain Moreno had been holding behind the ridgeline came in on the southern approach at treetop level. The sound was apocalyptic, a physical presence. The rotor wash through dust in walls that blotted out the sun. Its 30-millimeter chain gun spoke. Short, precise bursts, each round the size of a beer bottle, each impact like a hand grenade. The geometry of the fight changed in 6 seconds. The elements scattered, broke, ran. 2 vehicles on the southern route caught fire. Black smoke rising. The PKM on the high ground went silent. The crew abandoning their position under threat of Hellfire missiles. Sarah lowered the rifle, let out a breath she had been holding for longer than she realized. It was over, not finished. The enemy was still out there, still capable of regrouping. But the immediate threat was broken. They had held the aftermath. 11:57 hours, Sarah stood. Her shoulder screamed. The adrenaline that had been keeping the pain manageable was fading fast. She could feel every nerve ending around the shrapnel wound. She ignored it. Moved to Brennan, checked his chest seal for the 3rd time. Still holding, color good, pulse strong, pupils equal and reactive. How you doing, sir? Better than I should be thanks to you. Moved to Palmer. Pupils still slightly unequal but improving steadily. Concussion without complications. Moved to Hayes. Tibia fracture stable. No displacement. He would need imaging and proper casting, but he was not in immediate danger. Moved to Harlow. Knee swollen, but he had followed orders. Stayed static. Prevented further damage. She went through all of them. Methodical, unhurried. Each patient receiving her full attention in sequence. This was who she was. Medic first always. QRF arrival. 12:06 hours. The QRF ground element arrived 9 minutes after the Apache broke the attack. 3 MRAPs, 12 soldiers, professional. Fast, moving with the economy of men who had done this before. Master Sergeant David Sullivan stepped out of the lead vehicle, 52 years old, 28 years in the Army. A man who had seen things that did not make it into after-action reports. A man who recognized capability when he saw it. He walked the pass like a man reading a story written in brass and blood and stone. Spent brass casings, impact craters, the stalled technical, the blocked northern approach. The bodies on the southern road, wounded, not dead, all wounded, none killed. He walked it slowly, taking it in, understanding what he was seeing, precision, discipline, restraint under pressure. Then he stood in front of Sarah. She was on one knee beside Lieutenant Brennan, pressing fresh gauze to the chest seals she had placed 5 hours and 13 minutes earlier. Sullivan looked at the SR-25 on the ground beside her aid bag, looked at the expert marksmanship badge below the medical cross on her chest, looked at her name tape. Morrison, he knew that name. He stood there for a long moment, silent, his patrol cap in his hand at his side. The way soldiers stand when they are in the presence of something they do not have a regulation for. When rank and protocol matter less than respect. When he spoke, his voice was different than it had been a minute ago. Quieter, weighted with something that might have been race-shicked or recognition, or both. I served with your father, Ramadi, 2nd Battle, 2006. Sarah looked up at him. He saved my life, Sullivan continued, with that rifle. Pulled me out of a building after an IED brought it down. Killed 3 insurgents at 400 meters while carrying me over his shoulder. He nodded toward the SR-25. You just saved 7 lives with his rifle and your medical kit, using both the way he taught you. He paused. Colonel Morrison would be proud. You used both hands, Sarah. The use of her first name was deliberate, personal, beyond rank, a gesture that said this moment transcended protocol. This was one warrior recognizing another. Thank you, Master Sergeant. Sullivan nodded once. Let's get your people home. Extraction, 0238 hours. The Blackhawks came in just before dawn, 2 of them, heavy, loud. Sitting down on the road section Sarah had identified during the initial ambush as the only viable HLZ in the entire pass. She had noted it 4 hours and 53 minutes ago. Force of habit. The reflex of someone trained to always know the way out before the way in closed. They loaded Lieutenant Brennan first. Sarah rode with him, monitored his vitals, kept pressure on the seal, talked him through the pain. Then Palmer. Concussion stable, but still requiring monitoring. Then Hayes. Tibia fracture splinted and secured. Then Harlow. A CL damage documented. Movement restricted. Each of them looked at her when they went past, not gratitude. Gratitude was too simple, too transactional. This was something else. The look of someone whose understanding of the world had been permanently changed, who had seen something they did not expect. Who would carry this memory forward? Stone was last. He stopped at the helicopter door, turned back. The rotors threw wind across the pass, made conversation difficult, but he leaned in anyway, close enough that she could hear. Briggs is going to feel like an idiot. Sarah almost smiled, almost. He is young, he will learn. Stone nodded, then his expression shifted, became more serious. Doc, I am going to remember this, all of it, what you did, who you are. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small green notebook, the kind soldiers carried for notes and observations. I write things down, things that matter, so I do not forget. He showed her the page, fresh ink, written in careful handwriting. October 14th, Kunar Valley. Doc Morrison saved us, not just with medicine, with everything. She was the healer and the warrior at the same time. I did not know one person could be both. Now I do. Stone looked at her. I am going to keep this, remember it. Maybe someday tell people about it. Sarah felt her throat tighten. You do not have to. Yes, I do. Because what you did matters. Not just for us, for anyone who thinks they have to be just one thing. He closed the notebook, put it back in his pocket. You should get a medal for this. Maybe. No, you should. But even if you do not, we know, we will remember. Sarah nodded, could not trust her voice. Stone climbed into the helicopter. Sarah was the last to board. She sat against the fuselage with her aid bag between her feet and the SR-25 across her knees. Watched the Kunar Valley pass slide away beneath the rotors. The blocked approach, the wreckage on the southern road. The thin ribbon of dawn coming over the eastern ridgeline like something slow and inevitable. She pulled the letter from her pocket, her father's letter. Read it again in the gray light. Use both hands. She folded it carefully, put it back over her heart, closed her eyes, the rotors beat steady overhead, carrying her home. 3 weeks later, FOB Ridgeline. Sarah was in the motor pool, cleaning her aid bag, restocking supplies. The routine work of a medic between missions. Sergeant Cole Briggs approached. Alone, no audience, no performance. He stopped in front of her, looked at her with an expression that might have been embarrassment, or might have been respect, or might have been both. Morrison, she looked up. Briggs. He was quiet for a moment, searching for words. Finally found them. I was wrong. About you. About what I said. About what I thought. Sarah waited. I did not know who you were, what you could do. I just saw a small woman who you did not think could do the job. Briggs flinched, but nodded. Yeah, that. Sarah set down the gauze she had been organizing. Briggs, you are not the first person to underestimate me. You will not be the last. I do not take it personally. You should. I was a dick. Yes, you were. But you are also a good soldier. Good on the 240, good under fire. And you are here now saying this, that matters. Briggs looked at her. How do I make it right? You already did, by recognizing you were wrong, by saying it. Not everyone does that. She stood, extended her hand. We are good, Briggs. He shook it. His grip was firm, respectful. For what it is worth, Morrison, you are the best medic I have ever served with, and the best shooter. Both. Both, Sarah echoed. That is the goal. After Briggs left, Chief Keller appeared. That was gracious of you. He is learning. Everyone deserves the chance to learn. Keller nodded, studied her. There is a rumor going around that you are being recommended for Silver Star. Sarah said nothing. Master Sergeant Sullivan submitted the paperwork. Captain Moreno co-signed. Lieutenant Brennan added a statement from his hospital bed. I have not heard anything official. You will not. The paperwork hit a flag in your file. Something from your past. They are not rejecting it, but they are not approving it either. Bureaucratic limbo. Sarah absorbed this, was not surprised. Her past was complicated. Her transfer from JSOC to Medical Corps had been voluntary on paper, but there had been reasons that created flags in the system. I did not do it for a medal, Chief. I know, but you deserved recognition. For the record. The people who were there know that is enough. Keller smiled slightly. That is a very SEAL answer, Morrison. I learned from the best chief. He nodded, turned to leave, stopped. Morrison, when this deployment ends, if you ever want to talk about where you came from, what you did before, my door is open. No judgment, just understanding. Thank you, Chief. He left. Sarah went back to her aid bag, both hands. She was learning to live with that. 6 months later, Quantico, Virginia Marine Corps Base, 0800 hours. The classroom at Quantico was full. 28 students, a mix of Marines, Navy corpsmen, and Army medics, all volunteers, all here because they had heard about something new, something different, integrated combat medicine, the course that would teach them to be both. Staff Sergeant Sarah Morrison stood at the front of the room. The projector showed a slide with 2 images. On the left, trauma shears and combat gauze. On the right, a rifle. Below both hands. She did not speak immediately. Let them look. Let them process. Some of them had heard the stories. Kunar Valley, the convoy, the medic who turned out to be something else. Some of them were here because of those stories. Others were here because the Marine Corps had made this training mandatory for forward reconnaissance corpsmen after reviewing the after-action reports. Either way, they were here, and Sarah was going to teach them. Not just the skills, the mindset. She began, your hands can hold trauma shears and a rifle. The question is not if you will need both. The question is when. She clicked to the next slide. A tactical scenario. Convoy ambush. Multiple casualties. Enemy on high ground. You have 4 WIA, 2 critical, 1 urgent, 1 routine. You have medical supplies for all of them. You have a weapon. You have ammunition. The enemy is at 400 meters and closing. She paused. Let them think. What do you do? A hand went up. Corporal Levi Cross, promoted after Kunar, now assisting with this course, 20 years old now. Different than he had been 6 months ago. denser, more sure of himself. You triage Staff Sergeant, critical first. Save who you can in the order that maximizes survival. Good. And if the enemy reaches your position before you finish with the critical patient, Cross did not hesitate. You transition to defensive, protect the patients, eliminate the threat, then return to medical. How fast can you make that transition? As fast as necessary. Sarah nodded. That is the mindset, not medic or fighter, both. Integrated, seamless transition based on tactical necessity. She clicked again. The slide showed statistics, casualty survival rates, time to treatment, defensive capability during medical operations. This course will teach you to think in both dimensions simultaneously. Medical and tactical, healing and fighting, not as separate skills, but as complementary capabilities. The class took notes, watched, learned. This was her legacy now, not the shots she had made in a single engagement, not the lives she had saved in 5 hours in the Kunar Valley, but the capabilities she could build in others, the wisdom she could pass on, the ability to make them whole. Both hands. That evening, personal quarters. Sarah sat in her small room at Quantico, Staff Sergeant's quarters, functional, clean. She had gained back the weight she lost, 127 pounds now. Healthy, the shoulder wound had healed, left a scar, a small pucker of tissue just below her collarbone. She did not mind scars. They were evidence of survival, proof that she had faced something and come through it. Her phone sat on the desk. She looked at it for a long moment, then picked it up, dialed. Her mother answered on the second ring. Sarah. Just her name, but there was weight in it, history. 10 years of a promise made, 6 months since that promise was broken. Hi, Mom. Silence, the kind that carried emotion too complex for words. I saw the article, her mother said finally. Her voice was quiet, careful. There had been an article, Military Times, about the new integrated combat medicine course at Quantico, about the instructor, about Kunar Valley. It had not mentioned the rifle specifically, but it had mentioned her father, Colonel James Morrison, Delta Force. It had connected the dots. I am sorry I did not call sooner, Sarah said. I wanted to. I just did not know what to say. You broke your promise. I did. Another silence, longer than her mother's voice, breaking. Your father wrote me a letter too, before he deployed, before Iraq, before she stopped, steadied herself. He told me that someday you would need to choose between the promise I would ask you to make and the capability he gave you. He told me that when that day came, I should not be angry. I should be proud. Sarah felt her throat tighten. Are you proud? Her mother laughed. Soft, sad, but genuine. Sarah Kate Morrison, I have been proud of you since the day you were born. When you chose medical corps, I was proud because you were choosing to heal. When you used your father's training to save those men, I was proud because you were choosing to protect. A pause. You did not break your promise, baby. You evolved it. You found a way to honor both sides of yourself. That is not breaking a promise. That is becoming whole. The tears came. Quiet. Clean. I miss him, Mom. I know, honey. I miss him every day. But you know what? What? He is watching, and he is so proud because you did exactly what he taught you. You used both hands, and you did not let either one define you. You let them both make you complete. They talked for another hour about small things, about the course, about Montana, about healing. When Sarah hung up, she felt lighter, not fixed. Some wounds did not fix, but whole in a way she had not been in 10 years. Both hands, both parts of herself, finally integrated. 2 weeks later, the D-memo. The memo came down from the Department of Defense on a Thursday. Subject dual certification pilot program, combat medical specialist/designated marksman. The program would integrate combat medical training with precision rifle qualification. 3 bases initially: Quantico, Fort Bragg, Camp Pendleton, expansion to other bases pending results. The concept: create operators who could provide emergency medical care and precision fire support. Fill the gap between pure medics and pure shooters. The program name: Both Hands Initiative. At the bottom of the memo was a note. Program concept developed from after-action review of Operation Ridgeline Convoy, Kunar Valley, Afghanistan. Special recognition to Staff Sergeant Sarah K. Morrison, USMC, for operational demonstration of integrated capability. Sarah read it 3 times. She had started something. Not intentionally, but effectively. The military was changing. Slowly, but changing. Because one woman had stopped running from her past, had integrated both parts of herself, had proved that healing and fighting were not opposites. They were complements. 3 months later, November, Arlington National Cemetery. The stones stretched away in perfect rows, white, identical, each one marking a life given, a service rendered. Sarah walked the familiar path. She had been here before, many times. But this time was different. She found her father's stone. Colonel James Morrison, Delta Force, 1969 to 2011. Beloved husband and father. She knelt, placed something on the ground in front of the stone. 2 photographs, side by side. The first, her at 10 years old, Montana Ranch, holding a rifle almost as big as she was. Her father beside her, both smiling. The beginning. The second, her now, 31, in uniform. The SR-25 in one hand, her aid bag in the other, the medical cross and the expert marksmanship badge, both visible on her chest. The integration. I used both, Dad, she said quietly. Just like you taught me. The wind moved through the trees. November in Virginia. Cold but not bitter. The smell of earth and fallen leaves. I stopped running. I stopped pretending I was only one thing. I let myself be both. She touched the letter over her heart. Still carried it. Would always carry it. You were right. About everything. About teaching me both hands. About knowing I would need them someday. About trusting me to know when. A moment of silence. I am teaching others now. Passing it on. Making sure they do not have to choose. That they can be whole. Both parts. Integrated. She stood, saluted, held it for a long moment. I love you, Dad. Thank you for both hands. She turned, walked back to her car. Behind her, the photographs stayed. Would stay until the groundskeepers removed them during the next cleaning. But the image was permanent now. In her, in the force, in the legacy. Both hands, Monday morning, 0800 hours, new mission brief. Sarah stood in the briefing room at Quantico. Deployment orders. 3 months. Afghanistan. Forward operating base. Embedded training mission. The team leader was Chief Nathaniel Keller, retired from active SEAL duty. Now contract instructor, now deploying one more time because they needed people who understood integration. He looked at Sarah as she entered. Ready Morrison. She had her aid bag, had her rifle case, had both parts of herself, integrated, whole, no longer at war with her own identity. Both hands, Chief, always both hands. He smiled, the slight smile of a professional recognizing another. Good, because where we are going, we will need both. The briefing began. Sarah took notes, absorbed information, planned. This was her life now, not running from her father's legacy, not hiding from what she was, living it, teaching it, proving it. Both hands, the healer and the warrior. Not separate, not at war, integrated, the way her father had always known they could be, the way she had finally learned to be. Epilogue. Somewhere in Montana, winter. The ranch was gone now, sold after her grandfather died. Someone else's land. But the mountains remained. The bighorns, rising in the distance. Snow on the peaks even in September. Sarah stood on the side of the road, looking at where the ranch had been. This was where it started, her father teaching her to shoot, her grandfather teaching her to pack wounds. Both hands, she had fought it for 10 years, run from it, tried to be just one thing. But in the end, she had learned what her father had always known. You were not meant to be just one thing. You were meant to be whole. And wholeness came from integration, not choosing between healing and fighting, but understanding that sometimes healing required fighting. And fighting done right was its own kind of healing. Both hands. She got back in her car, drove toward the airport, back to Quantico, back to her students, back to the work of teaching others to be whole. The mountains faded in the mirror, but the lessons remained. Steady hands, both of them, ready to heal, ready to fight, ready for whatever came next, because that was what Morrison meant, and she was her father's daughter, all the way home.